So let me start with a little bit of history because I think it's important to understand the unique role that the auto industry has played in the history of the U.S. The auto industry is really started in the U.S. by Henry Ford in the early 1900s. So the U.S. has always thought of its auto industry as the backbone of its industrial capabilities. And you're now looking at a rapid turnover of the auto industry from the combustion engine to electric vehicles. This is a very hot election issue. So if you go back to when Trump first put tariffs on China, Biden's response, which actually was totally true, but he's since changed his tune, is that tariffs are nothing more than a tax on consumer, because in the end, all it does is raise price, and that price increase is borne by consumers. So what Biden did really was retain the tariffs that were put in place by Trump, and then he added another whole dimension to the issue, which was blocking China from getting access to high-end advanced technologies from the U.S., especially in areas related to chips. So the why now is we're in the middle of a very heated election in the U.S., and so I think you're seeing China as a front and center issue. EVs are a front and center issue because everyone now realized that China has become the dominant EV producer globally. To protect the U.S. auto industry, tariffs are put in place basically for that reason. Longer term, it's not going to be effective at the end of the day, but people in the political world don't think longer term. I think the deeper question that needs to be put on the table is, how does the U.S. think about what China is doing? And if you read the press over time, the U.S. basically has taken the position that China is subsidizing many industries, especially the EV industry. And by subsidizing, I think most of us would interpret that as an ongoing subsidy that basically means they're not able to sell their product and recover their full cost. That's not the reality of what has happened in China. What has happened in China is the same model that has happened in major corporations around the world. They look at the future, they think of where the opportunities are and what their relative strategic position is going to be. They invest in R&D and in talent and in partnerships to be able to bring that vision to fruition. The big difference that is never talked about in the U.S. is China has basically invested in getting to this position, and China doesn't need to invest anymore in the EV industry because the industry is growing very rapidly and becoming totally self-sufficient. We've taken a strong position that over time we need to become much more environmentally sensitive, and therefore EVs were a clear target. And so admitting at this point in time that China, which had no auto industry to speak of, if you go back about 15 years ago, has now, by being smart and competent, catapulted to the number one position in the autos of tomorrow, which are basically EVs. So the U.S., I think, first and foremost needs to kind of swallow its pride and say, what can we learn from what the Chinese have done, and how do we become competitive? That's not going to be easy.
姐妹们总烦恼脸上细纹、干燥与暗沉，现在起跟我一起放心交给 KS Royal Face 皇家颜值逆时奇迹系列。KS Royal Face 皇家颜值逆时奇迹系列，它添加5种 EGF， 专门防止肌肤老化，强化皮肤修复，增加肌肤弹性水嫩，轻松抚平皱纹，换回青春自信。KS Royal Face 皇家颜值逆时奇迹，活肤露、全效精华、精华霜，即刻启动冻龄密码。